I'm going to do this little video on what you need to start a hydroponic system. First one is probably the easiest part. You need a container. This is a 5-gallon container. I purchased it at a regular big box store. Every store has them. This was $5 for this. They may have gone up since then. I bought these about 2 years ago. And the big thing with it is just make sure it's a good container. Make sure it is also not going to leak, obviously. Now what I did is the lid of the container, I used a 1 3/4 inch hole saw, and I drilled 6 holes. If you have a bigger container with more water, or a wider container, a larger container, you could probably drill a few more holes than that. I figured I don't want to do more than 6 just because of the weight that's going to be pushing down from each head of lettuce. But I don't think this container will have any sort of a problem. The next thing you'll want to purchase, obviously, for in the container, is the water. I source my water from a local grocery store. They have a little machine outside and it dispenses reverse osmosis water. Their water, it says, is treated with reverse osmosis, as I just mentioned, as well as UV and dual carbon filtering. How much of that actually removes bad stuff from the water? It probably does. I can't really guarantee it for sure though. What I will say is, where I live, our tap water has a high quantity of chloramine in it. That's about the worst thing you could try to grow plants in. From what I've read, chloramine basically will just continuously keep stunting the plant's growth as you add more. So what I do is I fill up a 5-gallon jug with water, and when I fill these up, I don't quite fill it all the way. So as I need to add a little more, it kind of works out. If I need to get more water, I just go back and fill another 5-gallon container. It costs about $1.50. Now what the holes are for here are for these little net cups. I bought these when I saw the price to buy a couple of them. I ended up buying a pack of 100 just because it was a lot cheaper. It was actually maybe like $3 or $4 more to buy 100 of them over buying like 25, so I just bought 100 of them. And the reason I made the hole only 1 3/4 inches is so the pot can just sit on the lip. And once you, obviously you could see. Now my holes aren't perfect. You'll notice there's probably a few flaws in some of them. They're not, but they do work. Another thing you'll need is hydroton. Though some people just use regular clay pellets, some people use fish tank stones. Because I have most of my hydroton in use right now, I don't have a lot of it with me. I could maybe fill up 2 or 3 more cups with what I have. This is what it looks like. It just goes in there. The point of it is, the water collects on the rock. The rock absorbs the water, and it kind of transfers it to the other rocks up above. It helps to keep the roots moist but not soaked. Now another thing that I have, some people use, some people don't, are these rock wool cubes. I purchased these in a giant pack. Here's the pack I've actually purchased. It holds 96 of them. And because of how big these are inside of the cups, and the point of the rocks also, I forgot to mention, is to keep the light out of the water, which is very important, which is a good reason to make sure you get a dark colored lid. You gotta make sure you keep the light out of the water or you're gonna have algae. Algae sucks the oxygen out of the water and the plants will not do very well or die. What I do with this usually is I cut it up because it's just too big for these cups. I might cut it into quarters, I might cut it into thirds, and then just put the rocks around it so that the rocks fill it up. The point of this is just to get the plant started. If you're starting from a seed, I would definitely recommend these. Some people, if they're starting from a plant, they'll just put it in there, surround it with the rocks, and it'll do fine. Because it's winter time, it's kind of hard to find lettuce seedlings, plants, whatever you want to call it. The seeds are easy to find, the plants are a lot harder. So I'm just starting from seed, and pretty much you just put a little hole in, put the seed in the depth it's supposed to go, and just kind of cover it, just to simulate it's in the ground. So that's pretty easy once you've got that all done. Now, that is all you need other than seeds to set up the container. Now once you have the water inside, you need a way to aerate the water. What I use is a system called DWC Deep Water Culture, which is this setup. Pretty much you want to aerate the water. The oxygen, to put oxygen in the water. The oxygen in the water feeds the roots of the plant and helps the plant stay alive. To do this, I just bought a very simple bubble bar, bubble stone, whatever you want to call it. You could buy them at any pet store. And also I bought a very simple fish tank pump. Doesn't matter the brand, doesn't matter too much about it, as long as it'll pump air into the hydroponic system you have. And there is one more important thing I don't want to forget about, is the hoses. Now normally when you buy for a fish tank you buy clear hoses. With hydroponics you want to keep the light out as much as you can. So it's recommended you buy black hose, which you can find at some pet stores. In my case it costs a little more, but this is for food, not for fish. So to me it's worth it. And once you've got that set up, all you need to worry about after that are where to put it and the lights. And I'm going to zoom out and go to my own setup right now. Now I have two single unit lights, which are two 4-foot T5HO lights. Some people say you could use regular shop lights with the dual lights, T12 or T8. If it works for them, I'd say go for it. I've not tried them. I just immediately went right to T5HO because I've read so much about how they put out much more light. They use a little bit more energy, but the amount of light, lumens of light, per the amount of watts it uses is much higher than a regular bulb. Now up on my next rack I have, these are T5HO 4-foot 4 light units. They do cost a bit, but they will be very helpful if I try to grow something that's going to need it. I'm mainly using them for my seed starting. For lettuce, everything I've seen suggests that if you have T5HO lights, 2 of them should be fine, 3 of them should be fine, 4 of them might be a little overkill. I mean, you'll get them to grow, but it's not really super necessary, as you can see just with these 2 lights what we've got growing here. And that really is it. I mean, the shelving I used, I got this at a big box store. It was, I believe, $50 on sale, normally like $75. It's just a metal rack. It's 6 feet high, 4 feet long. Seeing I got 4 feet lights, I figured I wanted to get a 4 feet rack, 4 foot long rack. And I figured go with metal just because of the weight, because these things are going to add up in weight. I mean, 5 gallons of water weighs a little bit more than you think when you're trying to lift it around, which is one of the reasons why I first set them up, then I filled them with water from my 5-gallon water container after they're sitting in place. Maybe another thing I'll mention is for holding the lights. I've seen a bunch of different setups. What seems to work best for me, and that I found online from another hydroponic grower, just use the cheap chains and S-hooks. These chains could hold 150 pounds. I didn't want to go with anything cheaper just because they were a lot thinner. They'll have no problem holding these lights or even the 4 bulb light units. They can handle it without a problem. That's pretty much the cheap way to do hydroponics, if you want my suggestions. I first started out with a kit. When I bought this container here, it came with the 4 pots, the container, a pump, hydrogen for the 4 pots, and 4 rock wool cubes. And I believe it was $40. It may have been $49.99. And once I saw it, I kind of determined it's a great kit. It's a great way to start, great way to learn. But you could do it cheaper yourself. It was a good experience, though. I mean, if you want a really quick setup of everything minus the lights and the water, obviously, I would go that way. I should mention the last thing, the nutrients. I use a nutrient called Maxigrow. I looked through the MSDS. It looks a lot healthier than most of what I've seen out there. This is a 10-5-14 fertilizer. And the nutrients, you don't use a lot when you add them into the containers. On the back it says 1 teaspoon to 2 teaspoons per gallon of fresh water. So you don't use a lot. I mean, this container here holds 2.2 pounds. It'll last you a long time. I don't think there's much more I could talk about. So I'm going to end the video here. All in all, the cost of this whole setup was probably, minus the lights, probably around $80 for the 3 other containers, the net cups, the rock wool cubes. Now that's 100 net cups, 98 of the rock wool cubes, hydrogen to fill them all, and the containers themselves, and the nutrients. The lights add a little more to it. I believe each one of these individual lights were $30 or $40 each. The big unit was about $150 at the time I bought it. It might be cheaper, might be more expensive. Haven't really priced lights because I think I have the setup I want right now. I'm going to end the video there. Thank you.